Hi. In this online tutorial, I would like to tell you a few things about the case study research method. The case study research method is arguably the most frequently applied research method in qualitative research that is used to investigate problems in complex socio-technical systems. But don't be mistaken. Qualitative research can be undertaken via a wide variety of research methods apart from case study research. Think, for example, about studies in which researchers closely observe a group of persons for a long period of time. This is called an ethnographic study. So remember that qualitative research is composed of many more research methods than just case study research. To develop yourself as an all-round researcher, it is important to at least know that different qualitative research methods exist. If you want to learn more about qualitative research methods, then please go to your library and read a number of handbooks on qualitative research and qualitative research methods. All of the different qualitative research methods, case study research arguably is the most common form of qualitative research on complex socio-technical systems that you will encounter in the CPEM courses. This is why I would like to highlight some key points about case study research and explain why these aspects are relevant for you. For example, consider the following situation. Suppose it is unclear which factors precisely influence decision-making by politicians when it comes to the construction of large-scale public works, such as major infrastructural systems. Unclear is which factors precisely influence how politicians decide with regard to the construction of these projects. In case studies in which the focus is on decision-making processes about the construction of large-scale public projects, the context in which decisions are made is highly important to understand the phenomenon that is the object of your research. Case studies study real-life events in their natural context because case studies more or less presuppose insufficient theoretical knowledge about a certain phenomenon. However, that does not mean that case studies do not use theory. In fact, theory is highly important in case study research, especially to identify useful concepts to describe the phenomenon that is being studied and build upon existing knowledge about this phenomenon. Theory is also used to reduce data collection and data analysis of the complex phenomenon as much as possible. In other words, theory is used to focus the research and reduce what needs to be observed in this case study. Different types of case studies can be identified. We distinguish explorative case studies, which are particularly focused on the identification and understanding of real-life events. Secondly, we identify descriptive case studies, which seek to describe real-life events. The idea is that in the future, and given that sufficient case descriptions of similar events become available, patterns can be identified. And finally, we distinguish explanatory case studies, which can be used to test the reliability of theoretically predicted causal relationships between certain variables. One of the most infamous case studies described is the Cuba crisis. Author Graham Allison uses the case study research method to explain the possibility of three theoretical lenses that might be used to explain the sequence of events in the Cuba crisis. An explanatory case study. In essence, Allison sought to explain the decision-making of the Soviet leadership during the Cuba crisis. Allison used three theoretical perspectives which had been developed previously: the rational decision-making perspective, the bureaucratic politics perspective, and the governmental politics perspective. To explain and understand the decision-making of the Soviet political leadership during the crisis. A highly recommended example of a case study research method that seeks to analyze a complex set of events. The term case study is a so-called container term. As you may understand by now, case study research is highly diverse. Nevertheless, case study experts have tried to provide researchers with typologies to distinguish various forms of case study research designs. One of the most prominent case study scholars, Charles Yin, has identified two dimensions to classify case studies. One dimension describes the research focus in case study research. This focus can be either on a single case, which investigates a single real-life event in its natural context. However, case study research designs can also identify multiple events that are worthwhile to investigate. A multiple case study design. The second dimension distinguishes the way in which the researcher tries to analyze the complex phenomenon that is being investigated. When the case study research identifies a single unit of analysis, this research focus in the case study is considered holistic. When, on the other hand, the researcher analyzes the complex phenomenon using different elements, the case study is considered to be of an embedded nature. When both dimensions are combined, the following typology emerges. For example, if decision-making is studied in the context of a single organization, the case study of this decision-making process in this organization can be classified as a holistic, single case study design. The case is limited to the decision-making process inside the organization and makes use of all the accompanying contextual information that allows the researcher to analyze this process meticulously. However, if the decision-making, for example, is analyzed as a more complex process that is built up of various processes inside the organization, for example, the decision is the result of a collection of sub-processes of various units and hierarchical layers inside the organization, then multiple units of analysis can be identified in the case. Decision-making in the organization is no longer considered as a single phenomenon inside the organization which can be traced via, for example, minutes of the board of executives. Instead, decision-making is considered to be the results of various decision-making processes by various groups inside the organization. Instead of focusing only on decisions taken by the executive board, the focus in the embedded case study research design on decision-making is extended to decisions made in various groups to understand the decision-making process. All these processes need to be investigated and analyzed in the case study, resulting in multiple units of analysis. But how do you select the right case study research design? What type of case study fits your research question? The answer to this question is straightforward. You select the case study research design that allows you to learn as much as possible about the phenomenon that you want to investigate. Finally, one last remark with regard to the selection of cases. Contrary to quantitative research, representation of the cases is not considered to be of particular importance in qualitative research. So this means that the cases you select do not necessarily have to represent the sample from which it was drawn. A case study is not primarily intended to enable generalization over the set from which the cases were selected. Instead, cases are used to develop models and identify what relationship exists between a large set of variables. Please also watch the knowledge clip Qualitative and Quantitative Research. This leads us to reflect on some of the disadvantages and risks of case study research. Critics claim that case study research is insufficiently systematic and structured to be of much use in academic research. However, proponents of case study research argue that various tests can be employed to strengthen the methodological qualities of case study research. This slide highlights some of these tests and tools. Furthermore, in spite of the criticism, case study research has witnessed something of a renaissance in recent decades. Advances in the development and use of new and more advanced case study research methods has stimulated increased use of the case study research in complex settings to investigate current problems. And this concludes the discussion of some key points about case study research methods. More information on case study research can be found in the assigned literature. Thank you for your attention.